Started. Hi everyone, thank you for joining DataCon LA 2021 and welcome to the Data for Good track. My name is Joanna Perdomo, your host, and our co-host today is Mrinmoy Das, and we're going to be moderating the chat and Q&A for you during this session. Today we have our guests, Keren and Asaf, and they're going to be talking about using web data for a better tomorrow. Keren is currently in two roles at Bright Data. She's the VP of Brand Marketing and the General Manager of the Bright Initiative, which is an organization that uses data to make a positive impact on the world. Previously, Keren was an award-winning journalist at the BBC, covering major news events as well as current affairs. Asaf is currently the Sales Director of Bright Data, and he's a person with great analytical skills and has an ability to learn things very quickly. He loves working in an international environment in a role that involves numbers, analytics, and is close to human relations. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to our speakers. Thank you both, Keren and Asaf, for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Asaf, do you want to share the slide deck?
Yes, ma'am. Can you all see it?
Yes, I can
Fantastic. Fantastic. So we'll start. So as Joanna said, my name is Keren, and thank you for having us here. Asaf is with me, and we'll start with a very brief introduction before we go into the actual cases and examples of using data for good. So both Asaf and I are from Bright Data. Bright Data is a company that collects or provides access to the World Wide Web, to public web data. And what we're going to discuss today, what we're going to illustrate today, is an organization that today includes over 145 organizations within it that use and utilize public web data to make a positive impact on the world. We as a company believe that this is our role, and especially as market leaders, that this is our role, to use data not only for business purposes, but also to drive social change, to drive pressing environmental issues forward, and so on. Asaf, if you can. So let me tell you a little bit about the Bright Initiative. The Bright Initiative has been around now for a little over a year. It started with one case that we will illustrate and explain how it started. It focuses on three major goals. Like I said, on promoting real social change and attacking or addressing real pressing issues in the world, on promoting data skills and data-driven research, and driving web transparency and regulation around the world. We today, we include, actually, to be exact, 148 organizations, among them more than 90 academic institutions and some public body sectors. We are all focused on not only on addressing those issues, but in providing free access to our platform, to the Bright Data platform, in order to really provide whoever is working with us, whoever partners with us, the best of technology, support, know-how, and expertise that Bright Data can offer. So if we move to the next slide, you can see all the organizations, some of the organizations that are working. There are many more that have partnered with us. So among them, you can see universities like Princeton University, Oxford University, Northeastern, and more. For instance, Sciences Po in France, which is focusing on using web data to identify web discriminatory practices. or the World Ethical Data Forum, which from its name you can imagine what they do, but they're pushing forward and promoting ethical data practices. Or if it's the UK government now establishing their new a national data strategy, or in short NDS. We will discuss this in this presentation. And they're using web data for various reasons or various purposes. And one of them is obviously to identify and promote data skill set. So let's move forward to the next slide. So how did it start? It started like many other good initiatives, and it started from the pandemic, from when the pandemic broke. So when it broke, Bright Data, like many other companies, tried to look at ways that they can help with resolving the pandemic. No one understood the pandemic. No one really knew where it's taking us, and nobody knew the scale in which we are experiencing it today. So back in March 2020, we offered access to all kinds of researchers around the world to our web data platform. We quickly became part of a project called Spring COVID-19, which looked at ways of identifying or even remote diagnosis of the pandemic, of COVID symptoms. They looked at the situation in China back then and Italy, and from that they drew their conclusions, and they found out that most people that showcase or that showed some symptoms of COVID suffered from low saturation levels. To be exact, saturation is the levels of oxygen in your blood, and it's supposed to be 95% and up and above 95%. So they found that a sensor called SpO2 can help in remote diagnosis. This sensor used to be an Android mobiles. Like I have an old Android that had it, and I tried and tested it. Today you can find it in a new iWatch. We won't take credit for Apple using the SpO2 in their new iWatch, but I think it had a connection there because there were many publications talking about this sensor. And the researchers said that if we could find more than 10% of the world population that owns such devices with the SpO2, it's worthwhile moving on with this research. At first, we found 17% of the world population holding devices with the SpO2. And to explain how we did it with our automated platform, which basically scanned all around the web these devices and found out what they could find out in less than 24 hours. And we found out that in most of the world, they're about between 15% to 17% a usage of these kind of devices, which meant they could move on with this research. So this, you can read about it. It's actually online. This research was very successful in adapting and finding ways for remote diagnosis of COVID cases. Asaf, over to you.
Thank you. Still in the COVID, FindAShot. FindAShot, like many other initiatives, started from a dire need. And in this case, finding a COVID vaccine open appointment back in the day when it was hard to get one. So after about a year of pandemic, many quarantines and life that we were stranger to, finally we had the vaccines available. But as you all remember, the first few months of the vaccines being in the market, it was really hard to find an open appointment. And it wasn't rare to hear about people driving 4, 5, 6 hours just because they found an open appointment somewhere far away from them, even in another state. And this is where FindAShot was born. It was a one-man initiative that he started that after he found it hard to find an appointment for his own family members. So what FindAShot does is they make it very easily accessible to find vaccine appointments over 20,000 locations nationwide through a dashboard that just aggregates all of those into one place. The way that they do it is they use Bright Data's managed data collection tools in order to scan the web on real-time and routinely basis, and then gather that data into one location, making it very easy and very accessible for everyone to go ahead and find an appointment. Consider it like Google Shopping, but for a COVID-19 vaccine. Easy as that. Make something very important, very accessible. I myself know how hard it was to find a vaccine, and I myself had to drive a couple of hours. And luckily today it's much easier. But the first few months it was a very important need, and an initiative like this, not only that it helps everyone go back to normal life, it literally saves life in real time. So we were very happy to be able to cooperate with FindAShot. Another very painful subject in today's world, something that's always been with us, especially since the internet was so vast spread, is human trafficking. Human trafficking is something that we might all think that's the darkest corner of the web. I mean, why even bother with with the regular tools that we have? But apparently it's not the case. Human trafficking can be found in plain sight in regular internet websites, and as scary as it sounds, that's the case today. HTI, Human Trafficking Initiative, took upon themselves the very courageous and ambitious job of finding and identifying those networks using publicly available data from the web. And the way that they do it is they use Bright Data's automated data collection tools in order to scan a handful of websites real time on routine basis and at scale in order to find those key points that might identify some sort of network that happens in the shadows, but actually in plain sight. They do that by scanning ads, user profiles, reviews, and so forth. Then they collect all of that data into a major database. They run it through AI, artificial intelligence, and NLP, natural language process, and then compare it to data they already have. They add it to one big database. And from there, they take those insights, try to identify networks. And if they do, they go ahead and act if and when needed. So while we all think, oh, it's just the internet and everybody can see it, there's a lot of underlying in the internet. And they use only publicly available web data. Thanks to our managed tools, they collect it, and with the analysis they do, they can find actually human trafficking networks, which is amazing. And this is a goal that we're very happy to participate in.
So this is another project that we're all very proud of. And like Asaf said, sometimes you look at the web or you look at the internet and you say, okay, everybody can access it. But really, as you know, there's huge, vast quantities of data around there, and you need to make sense of it all and understand it all. So Elen is an organization in Israel. I'm based in Tel Aviv, and we were approached by them about a year ago. This organization is focused on saving teenagers and children's lives. Focus basically on removing children from abusive homes. So, as you know, teenagers live today online, right? They leave digital traces around all kinds of social networks, social channels, and so on. An abused child won't necessarily go and report that he's being or she's being abused. They will usually hide any kind of traces of it, or possibly leave some traces online. So Elen found out that there's some trigger words that you can possibly identify a child or a teenager that may be suffering from an abusive environment. They asked us to scan for them with our automated tools all around specific social media channels. We've done that. In Israel, it's estimated there are about 18,000 children suffering from such environments. They've saved so far several hundreds with these tools. I'm not sure it's only thanks to public web data, but obviously public web data helps here. And what they do is once they identify those cases, they try to converse with them very delicately in order to better understand the environment within which they're living, and try to get them removed from that abusive environment or abusive home to safety. We hope that we can continue helping with it. I know they now have developed a whole NLP driven platform to better converse with these children and try to provide them a safe home eventually. The UK government, as I mentioned before, were very much involved. Once the UK has left the European Union and with Brexit, there was a real need to build a new data strategy for the UK. Now, Bright Data is actually a UK-owned company, so naturally, that interest into the UK is very much part of us. So we offered our help earlier in December, actually, 2020, to the UK. We addressed their consultation with several aspects that we thought should be core to any kind of data strategy, whether it's promoting data skill set and bridging the gap over a data skill set. As you know, there is a real shortage, I'm sure in the US as well, but there is a real shortage in Europe for data skill set. Any kind of regulation or ethical framework for the data strategy should exist as well. And lastly, we spoke to them a lot about transparency, about learning from the business world and the successful cases and not so successful cases of the business world. So today, what we're doing with them is using web data first and foremost, like I said, to identify those gaps in data skill sets. We are looking into employment websites, other websites as well, to identify where is it that the gaps exist and how to bridge them, and what are the data skills needed around the UK. In addition, there are various initiatives to do with public web data, like the Net Zero Pledge, that is also driven by data at the moment, and we're helping with that. And lastly, and this is like a new a project that we have now initiated and are involved in, is promoting the public trust in data. Because as you know, when you say the word data, to some people. Right away, they think about private data and the sensitivity around that links all of that together. I think that whenever I speak to people, I think it's a surprise to them that most of the data generated in the world is actually public web data and not private data. But in order to generate trust and the public trust in any kind of data sharing platforms, you need to first and foremost openly communicate it. The Open Data Institute in the UK actually ran a survey not so long ago and found out that most people in the UK will be happy to share their own data, even private data, if they knew the purpose for it. So transparency and open communication is probably we'll call it the mother of all methods to promote any kind of data sharing initiative. And we're helping them with running several surveys, whether it's to monitor public web data across social media and to see what people are conversing around data sharing and data trust, or whether it is to look at different regions and see the gaps in trust over there over web data. We think that this is an opportunity to build a data-driven economy that is actually can be a model to others. And we look at this initiative as a great opportunity in terms of the global scale. So now I'm going to throw over to Asaf again.
Thank you, Karen. And another British company. Um, this one goes into a talk about a crisis that affects all of us, no matter where from in the world you're connecting to us today. This one you cannot hide, you cannot escape from, and that's the climate crisis. This is one crisis that we are, like, obviously with the rest also, but this one specifically we're very happy to tackle and add to our Bright Initiative portfolio. Therefore, we are super happy to have partnered with Subak. Subak is the first global nonprofit accelerator that comes to tackle this specific crisis. And what it does is that it funds and supports new startups and initiatives and individuals who come up with ideas to better help what's going on in the world today. And this is something that we all know, right? If it's the droughts that we see even here in the United States and the Western coast, and if it's the fires, if it's the hurricanes, that now the frequency of the hurricanes is so much more than it used to be, and now we had a hurricane in New York. So this is something that affects everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a rich country or a poor country or Western country or Eastern country. You can't escape it. So with this, like any other topic that we just talked and that Keren has spoken about, there's so much web data. And it's more about how much your imagination can go ahead and think what can help in order to tackle the next challenge. And piece by piece will help the bigger cause. So what we've done here, Bright Data gives full access to Subak and its members to its technology, support, manpower, expertise, data collection tools, and whatnot, in order to help them find the data they feel is relevant to help them find a solution. And it can be something like Keren said, to help get those Western countries into their net zero policy. Some say 2030, some say 2035, but you can get to it. You can make moves without having substantial data to rely on. So if it's to understand what is the effect of the meat industry on the climate crisis, right? So how much power and energy we have to put in 1 kilogram of meat, or a live example, mapping the routes of the coal industry where it's mined, where it's going, what is the cost of transferring coal from one place to another? What can you do? What else can you do with that cost? Can you use that cost in order to put it in renewable energy? So all of this data is out there. You just need um, the will to go ahead and collect it and analyze it, and you need the capabilities. So Bright Data gives all of the capabilities to the people that have the will and the know-how to go ahead and use that data. And we're very proud to be there from the get-go and to see this grow, because we know how important it is to the future generations.
All right. So this is just a sample examples of what we do with the Bright Initiative and how we work with it. We work with several universities, not only on to support any kind of academic research and to allow researchers or provide researchers free access to our technology, but also we provide sessions. For instance, with King's College in London, in October, we're running a whole data and technology week. With Northeastern University, we have provided one of our tools as a learning tool for the entire year. These are things that we're very happy to help, because we think that data professionals, like the data professionals in our company, should have the utmost support and utmost technological support for a better future. Data is, like we said, is the unsung hero behind all these initiatives and supporting them all into completion. A lot of those initiatives are going and expanding beyond our expectations, and we're happy to promote and have a little role there in saving people's lives as a whole, or in promoting social well-being around the world. So if there are any other organizations here listening to us, we're more than happy to provide that access, and more than happy to support as much as we can. We are now building a community around the Bright Initiative and a sharing community, and we'll have knowledge sharing platforms that will help each and every one of these organizations to even further elevate any kind of technological need. So I hope that these few examples have inspired you, and I hope that we can partner in the future and make a real difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Are there any questions?
Let me unshare my screen so we can see people.
Okay. There is no question so far. Let me go to the chat window. No question. So 33 people have joined. We can see it's surprising that no one has any questions. Please feel free. Yeah, please.
Let us write in the chat our emails, so you can feel free to email us later.
No, Preet has asked a question just now. You mentioned social media data. Is this private?
Asaf, you take it. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. We only collect publicly available data. That is part of the guidelines. That's one of our pillars that guide us through our mission. Our mission is to make the public web publicly available again, right? Because today we see that even if data that is completely public, it's not always accessible. And that's where Bright Data comes in hand. So we only collect information that is available to anyone. If there is a paywall or a login wall, we will not collect it. Aside from being a leading data collection company, we also want to be the leaders in the world in the ethical data collection. So it has many aspects, but one of those aspects will be to only collect data that is publicly available. So that's a very good question. I hope I answered it.
Okay.
I
Yes.
see there is another question.
Yeah. Can you show an example of public data? What are the data formats?
Data formats, it's basically according to the client's needs, right? So the most common one would be a JSON file, but we can also give it in either a CSV, an Excel, or the raw HTML. So it really depends on your needs. If you want it parsed or if you want it raw, we can support everything. As for publicly available data, it can be data from dashboards, from different dashboards, right? So if we're going to CVS to see where they have openly available COVID shots, or if it's some sort of a government dashboard with data about COVID or about coal or about anything else, or social media, some platform, most of their data is public. For example, Twitter. Another example, which is mostly private, would be Facebook. That's why Twitter is a main source of social media that we collect. Karen, do you want to answer the one from Ray?
I can't see it. Sorry.
What privacy laws are regulating the data collections and consumption sharing?
I'll answer in very broadly. Bright Data, first and foremost, is a self-regulating company, regulated company. Because when you talk about regulation, a lot of the regulation focuses obviously on GDPR and CCPA, and that's all to do with private data. But when it comes to public web data, there's very little regulation. So nobody talks about the behind the scenes, how the data is gathered, what do you need to pay attention to, what kind of copyright regulation do you need to pay attention to. That's a little bit left for the guessing. It's a lot of guesswork around it, and every company and every provider follows a different set of rules. So what we're trying now to do is actually, and hopefully with your help, is promote a framework that eliminates all this guesswork and gives a set of rules and provide a set of rules for a responsible and compliant data gathering. For instance, if you send too many, you know this probably, but if you send too many requests into a website, you can almost make the website collapse or possibly damage the information display on the website. So we make sure that we don't do it. You can see it on our website. There's all kinds of guidelines that we follow in order to make sure that never happens. We, as a company, have an in-house compliance team that is 24/7, very extensive, in order to safeguard our platform and safeguard our customers' data as well. So I hope I gave you a little bit more of a extensive answer there, but I'm afraid there is no real regulation or no real framework. There is attempts to have them for public web data gathering.
All right, there we have two more questions. Kirthi, this is for you. Are these data collection on demand from clients? Also, is there any distinction based on live data and an example versus future data, if this is a relevant example? So We collect data that is currently available, right? So if it's on the web, we can collect it. We don't come up with the predictions or usually we don't come up with the insights. What we do is we take the heavy load of the web scraping, the web data collection. We take that heavy load from the shoulders of the companies, the NGOs, the universities, and we do it ourselves. And we just send over the collected data already parsed or not, depends on their needs. And then they do whatever they do with that data. So yes, it is on demand, but they can also set it in a way saying, hey, this is what we need. Here's the website that we want it, and then we'll go ahead and do it. We can set it on specific times, right? Every day, every 2 hours, every day at 3 a.m. We have ways to do it, like to set it up in the most, like customize it in any way, shape, or form that the client needs. But obviously, it will always start with a client need. And as long as it's on the web and it's public, we'll go ahead and collect it. If it's not there yet, then we cannot do it. I hope I understood your question correctly. And Preet, what kind of metadata do you collect? For example, if you're collecting web pages that match certain filter, do you collect, say, the tech stack for those web pages? If you do not mind to kind of elaborate a little bit more about your question, I'm not sure that I fully understood it. You can either do it in the Q&A or in the chat.
Let me just say that to add to Asaf's previous question, while Preeti expands on her question, is that Gartner, for instance, evaluates that 40% of the time for companies, for organizations, is spent on the data collection itself, where out of the whole a task of collecting and analyzing the data, it's between 40 to 80% sometimes the company spend it on the collection itself, which means that a lot of that heavy lifting is time wasted, right? And instead of focusing on the analysis, they focus on the actual technical part. So what we try to do in our company is basically, I know all companies say it, but do the heavy lifting for these organizations. But it's really, I think, essential when it comes to tech for good initiatives, because we can free them, all these organizations and researchers and so on, to really focus on what they're trying to tackle, and not and just know that somebody else is taking care of the if that mechanical or a heavy lifting, hard to do, mission critical data collection.
Yeah, and I can give you an example. It also showed in one of the slides at the universities we work with, and so you can understand how easy it is, like how easy we make it. So the University of Southern Georgia. Yep, here I'm right now answering you that, Preet. University of Southern Georgia. A professor from the economics department is doing a research about the impact of real estate pricing on poverty and everything related to it. So what they need for that research is the prices and specs of every asset in a specific zip code. And then they gather it over time and they do their analysis and so forth. Now they do it over hundreds of zip codes. If you do it by yourself manually, it will take a lot. I don't even know how to quantify it, not only in time, but also in manpower. What we do is we allow them we build them a collector that all they need to do is put in a zip code, and they will get already parsed in a JSON format all of the listings, all of the prices, all of the descriptions of the assets in one click of a button. So instead of putting a person to do it by themselves, they just need to put in a zip code, and within a matter of minutes or
Sorry,
up,
Asaf.
yep.
It's time check. It's just finish it up, wrap it up quickly.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. So I just want to finish that within a click of a button, they get all of the information, and all they have to do, the people of the economics, is to actually use that data and go ahead with their research. And that's the kind of data that we collect and we provide. Thank
Okay.
you, Rinmani.
Yeah. With that, I would like to thank you, Keren and Asaf, for your presentation, and thank you to the attendees for the questions and interaction during the session. You can obviously contact the speaker directly, and Asaf has already shared his email address.
Also,
Please,
Keren. Yep.
yeah, please provide your feedback using the form provided in the chat box. Joanna, can you please put it in the chat box? Okay, thank you again, everyone, for joining today's presentation, and I hope you gained valuable insights from this session. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for being part of this year's DataCon LA.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.